Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Engineer2MBA panel. Thank you for joining us. My name is Fanay Croft, and I am the Field Marketing Manager here at the Graduate Management Admission Council. Throughout my travels, I interact with candidates, and it's becoming increasingly common to meet people with engineering backgrounds who are interested in going on to get their MBA. Given this, we've compiled a panel of experts because we want to make sure that we're answering all the questions that you need and making sure that if this is the option for you, you can understand the path, hear from those who've done it, and also get a better understanding from the industry on what the value is of an MBA and what you can ultimately expect in these programs and the outcomes thereafter. So joining us today, we have 4 guests today. I really appreciate all of you for joining us. First, we have Jennifer Barber. She's the Associate Director of Admissions at MIT Sloan School of Management. We have Michael Tarantino, who's the Director of Recruitment and Admissions at Lehigh University. We have Ryan Gibson. He's the University Relationship Manager at Cisco Systems. And then we also have Tyler Impey, and he is currently in a dual degree program at Syracuse, an Engineer MBA program. So we have a great cast of folks here today that any questions that you may have will likely be able to give you an answer, give you some perspective, or give you some insights that can help you as you select your journey towards your future. So again, thank you. Before we get started, I want to mention one quick thing. So you're watching us on YouTube. We want to make sure we're answering any question that you have. So initially, we're going to start things off. We're going to have a conversation just about engineering and the MBA in general. But I want to make sure that your questions are getting answered. Any question you have, post it to the comments section. We'll make sure that we see it, and we'll be sure to address the question at some point throughout the event. We'll likely chat the first 30 minutes or so and then get to the questions later. So just stick with us to make sure that your question is addressed. I also want to make note that we love to gain insights, learn more about candidates, what you're going through, what you're into, what's happening right now. So if you go to mba.com/surveys, there's a 30-second survey there that you can fill out. You get an opportunity to win either a $50 exam voucher to take the GMAT, or if you're nowhere near that, then you can use it for a $50 Amazon gift card. But we want to make sure we're gathering those insights so that we can make sure that we can continue to offer content that matters most to you. So thank you, everyone. Hello. Good afternoon again. So I'll jump right in and talk with our university representatives first. So from your perspectives, why should an engineer consider business school in the first place?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. Hey, everyone. So what we look for whenever we're thinking of engineers going into more of an MBA role is product managers. And product managers are ones who really facilitate the relationship between the technical side of the business and also the front end, the business development side. So if you're wanting to go into a career where you're hanging out with the front of the office as well as the back end of the office, working on technical as well as business problems, the MBA route is definitely the way you want to go. A lot of MBA programs have tech clubs where they work with technical organizations for MBA roles, product manager roles, different opportunities to travel to offices around the country, the Bay Area, as well as the East Coast, to understand more about the relationships that MBAs have with engineers and also their role within a tech company.
Great. Thanks, Ryan. Jennifer, any thoughts there on what you look for in your program?
Sure. So here at MIT Sloan, we have 2 different programs we're typically pulling people in. So we have our traditional 2-year full-time MBA program. We also have a joint degree program with the School of Engineering. And that program is called the Leaders for Global Operations program, where students can receive a Master of Engineering and an MBA in a 24-month program. But overall, we're looking at a diverse set of candidates. We often attract with an engineering background, being at MIT. And students are looking to use the MBA to transition. Some are looking to go deeper into the area that they've already been working in and maybe transition, similar to what was just said, to a product manager type of role. We also see people looking to switch gears with an MBA. Maybe they thought this area of mechanical engineering or technical work was really the right mix for them. But now that they've gained more perspective, they're using the they're using the MBA to transition to possibly a consulting role or a financial management role. So we really see the MBA as an opportunity to continue to learn more about what you're good at, but then also to learn about what you never knew existed. And our full-time programs are really designed to give you the tools and the opportunity to transition, and we'll support you through whatever it is that you want to do.
Okay. Michael, so what should they be thinking about right now? Like, I know a lot of people, they have this thought that MBA, that's going to be business. I've been really technical. Do I have the goods? Will this work for me? Like, what would you say for them or say to them?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And that is definitely a concern that when we do speak with engineers who are applying to our program, they certainly will say that. They have a technical background. They may feel like they can handle some of the coursework, but switching over to a business curriculum is going to be different. It's going to look different. And in their research, it is very different. They may have taken very high level chemical engineering courses that I would never want to take, and probably did very well in those classes. But then when they look at an accounting class, it seems foreign to them. But one of the things to keep in mind is that side of the brain, that quantitative side, the thing that's getting them through those technical courses is very useful in an accounting course or a finance course or a high-level statistics course. So there are a lot of comparable traits between what those candidates may have done in their background in an engineering curriculum that they will do in a business curriculum. So the first thing is, do not feel like you're out of place. Similar to the situation at MIT, our most popular undergraduate major at Lehigh coming into our MBA is actually engineering. So we have more engineers in our MBA programs than traditional business students. Part of that is because it's Lehigh and most people know us as an engineering college. But the other part of that is it's a very popular transition for folks who do have an engineering background, combining that technical side with more of a management side. And that is what I do get out of students eventually when we talk to them about why they want to pursue the degree, is they feel like they are very knowledgeable about the technical side of what they do, but they want some of those leadership skills, some of the soft skills, some of the management skills, and that's what you can really get from an MBA curriculum. And that's something that those students can really strive to do once they're in the program.
Thank you. Tyler, so let me bring you into this conversation because you are currently in an engineer MBA program or engineering/MBA program. Can you give the viewers some insight maybe about your background and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, definitely. So, I started my engineering career here at Syracuse. I was kind of looking into the MBA program, and it definitely appealed to me. I mean, you guys have used the word a couple of times, technical. We definitely have that as an engineer, and then you also have your analytical ability, which kind of, you can definitely apply it in a business sense by, recognizing patterns and especially stuff like that. My specialization for the MBA program is actually business analytics. So when I start to actually work with larger data sets, I can really apply my engineering background to help me kind of get ideas about it, provide insights to, during presentations, or if I'm supplying a report to a professor. So yeah, the MBA definitely applies in an engineering sense in that degree.
Sure. What's your dream career? Like, what's your goal?
Okay. Yeah. So I've always wanted to work for a private space company. I'm kind of inspired by Richard Branson, Elon Musk, those kinds of guys. So when I, dove into the MBA world, I wanted, to have the ability to actually propose ideas. As an engineer, we have a creative mind, very analytical. And then, we need those skills and those tool sets to actually portray that to potential customers or employers or something like that.
Okay, cool. Ryan, so speaking about career paths and things like that, what types of roles or industries typically value that combination, the engineer and the MBA? Like, do you have any examples of career paths, one versus the other?
Yeah, absolutely. So for students that have engineering backgrounds that also want to have that MBA experience or that business side, I've heard of students going into product manager and business strategy manager roles. Again, those are those roles that work with the back end, they work with the developers, but then they also work with clients in the industry, whether it be healthcare or government or finance. They work with them to understand the problems that their customers are having or how they can be useful, and then translating it back to the business. So the engineers who are actually working on that product or working on that line of service to help them understand and kind of mediate that. So the technical background is really important because you have to understand what the engineers are saying. But then the MBA part is extremely important because you have to be able to communicate that effectively to the business and then also your clients as well, be able to explain that problem. So working in business strategy, but then also product management and product development, those are kind of the two career paths that I've seen with people with engineering and technical undergrads and then going into more that managerial MBA role.
Okay. So before we get there, you have to go through the business school process. Michael, would you mind like walking us through what that looks like and helping the attendees understand what that process is like?
Sure. Yeah, and I think where it starts is researching types of programs and types of universities and really what your goals are after the program and putting that into your research prior to joining a program. One thing about business schools and MBAs are it's not one size fits all necessarily. So it's important to really find your fit. You probably heard that when you went to your undergraduate institution. Find the fit, find the school that fits your career goals, fits your plans for attending that school, curriculum fits, faculty fits, maybe a sport that you want to play, all that kind of stuff at the undergrad level. But the grad level, there's a lot of similar things with MBAs because there are different concentrations you can choose from. There's different courses within the program that may be beneficial to you that other people would not really care to take. There could be programs that have internships or co-ops that are included in that program at more of a full-time pace, or you may want to continue to work and go at a part-time pace. So a lot of things that you need to do at the beginning is really figure out what your budget looks like, what types of programs you'd be interested in doing, whether or not you want to play around with an online program or an on-campus program. And then after that, you kind of start to make your short list. What are the schools that you can get into? What are the schools you wish you can get into? And then you want to start to look at some of the entrance exams. There are a lot of schools, pretty much every program that would take the GMAT. People are afraid of the GMAT. I'm even afraid of the GMAT at this point, just because everyone tells me they're afraid of the GMAT. But don't be afraid of it. It's a test. You've taken plenty of tests. You took SATs, ACTs. You took tests to get you through school. It's just another test. You can take it multiple times if you need to. And again, you have typically, most engineers, to generalize, generally are better at that quantitative side of the brain. So the math portion of the GMAT is what people are afraid of. Do not be afraid of that because you probably will do okay. So take a look at that test, see what scores you get, navigate that list once again, and then really start to dive into the application process. Talk to people like us, Jennifer and myself, who represent some of these different institutions that you'll be at. We are here to help. I think typically admissions folks get that stigma that we're kind of gatekeepers to our programs. We're not that way, at least I don't think I am. And speaking to Jennifer so far, I don't think she is either. So we're here to help people. We're here to help you find that fit, answer questions about programs, compare and contrast your options, because not every program is going to be the best for you. And especially somebody coming from a non-traditional business background into an MBA program, you're going to want to find something that has a good comfort level for you as you're moving through that curriculum.
Any thoughts there, Jennifer?
Yeah, I completely agree with what Michael said. I think, doing that initial preparation, determining which programs are a good match for you is important. But then it's really great to get to know what the different schools are all about. A lot of what this process boils down to is fit on both sides of the equation. Many candidates do all of that initial preparation and then determine which schools they're going to apply to. You're probably qualified if you're applying to our schools. You're going to self-select based on the profiles of the class. Our job is really fine-tuning that. The majority of the people who we're looking at have the scores, have the grades, have the great work experience, but we want to admit people who are, really passionate about studying here at MIT Sloan. So visit our campuses, join us at events. We're constantly out there recruiting, trying to get to know you better. Like Michael said, we are your advocate in the process. Our job is to admit you. So continue to get to know us throughout the process, connect with current students and alums. I think it's really important for us in the admissions process to find people who really want to be here And I'm sure that's the case for many of the other MBA programs out there.
Great. Tyler, how do you feel like we've talked about how the experience comes in and assists, your application. How do you feel that your engineering experience benefits you in your program or benefited you in becoming a part of this program?
Yeah, of course. I think a large part of it is communication. So as an engineer, we're discussing a lot of advanced concepts that we really have to portray to other individuals. So coming into the MBA degree and, getting experience with people that are pretty diverse, not typically from this country or anything like that, you have the ability to communicate effectively with other people and learn about their experiences and want to actually learn about it and how they experience their undergraduate degree, especially in the countries, that they came from. Especially, in my experience, I've talked to a majority of our MBA program. The individuals are from places like India, and their schooling system is obviously a little bit different than ours. They talk about how in their undergraduate degree, their classes were a little bit larger. They don't have the experience of publicly speaking that we do. And then coming over here where the classes are a little bit smaller and we're talking in presentations and everything like that, it's definitely a new experience for them.
Okay. I want to talk a bit about format. So first I want to talk to Jennifer and Michael. If you could talk about maybe different formats you have at your school, and then also what you know in general of MBA programs, because we hear, and I see a question over there that's even, I get do I do part-time? Do I do full-time? Do I leave my technical, niche and step away for 2 years? So if you could talk about the various formats available, and then Ryan, if you could, shore that up with letting us know if there's a preference, one versus the other in your experience on format.
Sure, I can start. So I think there's a format of an MBA out there for everybody. There's many different paths to getting an MBA. Here at MIT Sloan, we have several different formats. We have a very traditional format of a 2-year full-time MBA. You come in September, you graduate 2 years later in June. This is a great opportunity for people who are looking to change their career a little bit. It gives you an internship opportunity in the summer. It's a fully immersion program. Candidates in that program are not working anywhere else. They're here 24/7. We also have executive MBA. So an executive MBA would be for people with maybe 12 or more years of experience. And that is, a weekend program. So our program, every program is a little bit different. Our program here meets every 3 weeks, Friday, Saturday. And there's a couple full weeks mixed in between. That's really going to target candidates who are interested in moving forward within the defined career path they have already. It leaves a little bit less room for making a huge pivot in your career path. But then, I think possibly Michael could speak to traditional part-time programs or online. I'm not sure. We have a couple versions, but there are many ways to get an MBA. I think the main thing is doing your research and figuring out what meets your specific career objectives.
So to jump in, I think we talked about fit, and Jennifer mentioned it again. I think there are programs out there for you. Just do the research to find them. I think one of the things that commonly we see, and between both of our schools, the programs that we have, the rankings always come into play, right? But make your own ranking list. That's one of the things I always like to say. And we're a finely ranked school, so I'm not saying this because we're not there. We're there. But it doesn't mean that it's going to be the same ranking for you. You're looking for a certain type of program. You have certain goals at the end of that program. Make sure that the one that you're choosing is number one on your list. Don't listen to what somebody else has composed. At Lehigh, we have a couple different program options that work really well. We have a 1-year MBA that starts in January, has a summer internship, and then you would complete that program by December of the same calendar year. So that's a really good option, as Jennifer was mentioning, for people who want to really transition into a new role. So engineers, that could be a really good fit for you, because if you're looking to get into a management role, you want to pick up some internship experience within the MBA, that could be a great way to do that. And a full-time program may be beneficial to you. We also offer a part-time program. We call it our Flex MBA. You could do that on campus or online. And the format for those online classes are live. So you're actually participating with the same exact class that's happening in the evenings on campus, You're just doing it from a distance in a format similar to this, actually. So where you can see other people in your classroom, you can see the main speaker that's happening. There's chat boxes. There's all these different things. So it's really nice. You get the opportunity to participate with a live class from afar. You don't have to leave the workforce. So if that's something that you can't swing financially or in your personal life or that work-life balance, part-time program's another good way to do an MBA if that fits your goals. If you're not looking for a great transition, sometimes you may just be looking for a promotion within your own company, and that could be a really good way to do that. So those are the kind of options that we have here. We have a couple of dual degree programs and joint degree programs that kind of go off of those two main program types. But we think we have a fit for anybody, really, as Jennifer mentioned too, as long as you're picking the right program for you. So you may look at Lehigh and think you really like what we have to offer as an institution, and then between the different program options that we have, one of those might be a good fit for your own schedule and finances and your goals at the end of the program.
Great. And Ryan, employers, does it matter? Do they prefer full-time versus part-time, online versus something else?
Yeah, so for our full-time positions, as long as you're graduating around your graduation date, so if you were to graduate in May timeframe and you needed to start in June, that's totally fine. For us, it doesn't matter if it's a part-time MBA, weekend MBA, or full-time for our full-time positions, as long as you are graduating with your MBA before your start date. Everyone's situation is a little bit different, and kind of piggybacking off of them and our other panelists, pick the MBA that's right for you. What your current situation is, what you can do, things like that. But for our internships, they are during the summer, and usually you do have to relocate. So whether it be San Jose for us, or Research Triangle Park, or any other location, and you're usually working 40 hours a week, getting paid during that time for about 10 weeks. And the benefit of doing that and interning with the company and doing your 2-year MBA is that you usually can get a full-time offer before you graduate and the fall right after your internship ends. So there is that benefit of having that job stability. If you do the 2-year program full-time, you already have an internship if you get one, then also potentially have a full-time offer post your MBA. But usually it can be a little bit difficult for people who do have their part-time and weekend MBAs because they do have other obligations going on and they can't, do that 40-hour a week during the summer or even relocate. So we do have different opportunities that vary. But for full-time, it's usually not an issue what type of MBA you get. But for internships, we usually do recruit for the full-time MBA students because they do have that flexibility to move for the summer or do a different role where they don't have to, be located to where they're taking their MBA.
Okay. And while we're talking about placing candidates and things like that, overall, what ends up being, is there one set of skills that ends up being more important than the other or rises up more than the other?
Yeah.
Technical, soft?
I would definitely say soft skills are very important. As I mentioned, you are needing to be that communication and that professionalism in person, working with the back-end developers and the tech team, then also the business. I think it really depends on what role you're going into and what the particular role is. So definitely be looking at the job description. I always tell students whenever you're applying for a job, whenever you're looking at the requirements, the bullets that are first, second, third are going to be top priority. So usually that's where you'll see degree, you'll see some technical skills. And then as you're going down the list, you'll see not as important, even more of the soft skills, but, every quality is, kind of equally important in terms of you're looking at an MBA role from an engineering standpoint, because you do need to be able to communicate that and communicate what the business needs, and also kind of any technical problems to different parts of the business group. So but I would say that soft skills are probably the most important whenever you're looking at presentations and case studies and being involved and being able to present yourself in a professional manner, even when you have those technical skills.
Okay. Jennifer, we always talk about it's like, in a general sense, people know that you need an MBA to move into management and things like that. There is not always the conversation about what specifically you're going to get. Can you and Michael touch on a few nuggets to give the viewers some insights on what that means? They know they need an MBA to send to another level, but what might some of the topics or a few of the courses, you know, entail or consist of? Oh, we lost you.
Can you hear?
There you go.
Okay.
Yep.
There are a lot of different electives to choose from, so you can really customize a lot of what you focus on during the MBA, but I think all of our MBA programs are going to have a core set of courses that we want to expose our graduates to. So you're going to learn financial management skills, you know, operations skills, supply chain, project management, leadership. You're going to learn to negotiate. You'll learn to influence people and gain their buy-in into your ideas. You'll learn to, you know, really just tackle problems and think about how other people are involved and how to manage the different personalities. Many of our, many of the MBA programs out there will have an action learning or an experiential learning component to them where you'll work on live projects with organizations where you'll be put in teams. The teams are typically designed to be very diverse. So you'll work with someone who maybe hasn't taken a math class since high school. You'll work with someone who maybe has 15 years of experience. You may work with somebody who, you know, is a marketing expert but doesn't know anything about engineering. And we're really designing a program to help you build confidence to tackle whatever comes in front of you after the MBA. You know, many of our programs, our programs, I should say, here at Sloan, but many of the MBA programs out there have tracks or kind of majors, if you will, that will help you follow different paths. So here you could focus in business analytics or finance or strategy. We have an entrepreneurial focus. You know, every MBA program out there is going to have different ways or roadmaps you can follow to really target and tailor what you're studying. But I don't know if Michael wants to jump in. I don't want to steal everything here.
No, it is. It's exactly what you're saying. It's one thing that I enjoy about the MBA, and especially when we meet candidates one-on-one, is their background and how diverse they might be themselves, and then you add them to the rest of the class that you're putting together. And you know, one thing that is nice about the MBA, we're saying it's not a one-size-fits-all program type, but the MBA itself as a degree that's out there, anybody could go for an MBA and it would probably benefit you in some way, you know, for some more than others. But the MBA, because it's so overarching into things like leadership and team building and team management and ethics and law topics and, you know, a lot of the other things that we've already spoken about, you really could come from any industry or any academic background, sciences and humanities and all those kind of things, and fit into the MBA program, do all the things that Jennifer just said, and then when you exit, go into anything else, anything different, the same exact path. And it's a really nice way to kind of make a transition into that leadership type of role, that career growth that you might be looking for. So Jennifer mentioned a lot of the courses and the curriculum. I might tweak the question a bit and also add in a lot of programs have some additional extracurricular types of things, like organizations you can join, Toastmasters, or doing TED Talks, or breaking yourself out of your shell, going to more networking events, doing some professional development, and really getting those soft skills. So Ryan mentioned earlier, one of the things that they look for at companies is that soft skill development for anybody, and maybe specifically engineers as well. And at the programs, it might not even be a course, but it might be something you can do in addition to your program at that school that can help you build those skills even further. And that's something that you can look for as you're looking at different schools and pursuing the degree, whether you're full-time, part-time, any type of degree, program type. You can still join some of those organizations and get the opportunity to develop those skills beyond what you would have done in the classroom. But yeah, I mean, it's a nice degree because of the way that you can kind of come from anywhere, go anywhere, and still really transform yourself while you're in the program for however long that program is.
Sure. Tyler, you're living this right now. Can you speak to a sentiment or experience, project that you feel like really leans in here as it relates to building those soft skills, leadership skills, etc.?
Okay, yeah. So I guess jumping right off the bat through orientation, which was a 2-week process where we got to meet everybody and meet all the other potential MBA candidates and everything like that. They put us into a group that, we had no idea who the other people were. We had never communicated with them before, and we really had to jump right in and make a presentation about a business case. And And coming from an engineering background, a lot of it's writing papers. We don't necessarily make presentations. So getting that public speaking experience was definitely something that was new to me, and then obviously new to some people that weren't necessarily or didn't have a background in it as well. Yeah.
What advice would you offer an engineering candidate? What can they do now to help them prepare ultimately for whether it's a dual program or just an MBA program in itself?
Take opportunities, like a lot of the opportunities through your engineering program. Get experience with a lot of the clubs, because some of those people in those environments do actually have business experience when they're dealing with a lot of the finance or budgeting for the actual clubs. You want to get to know those people and actually network, because that's a large part of the actual MBA, is learning to network and learning to communicate and getting to know people who might eventually be either an employer or an employee or someone that you're co-working with.
Great. Jennifer, any thoughts there on advice on what they can do now if for people who are considering this? I'm looking at some of the questions that we're getting, and we're going to get to those, but it seems like people are, especially when you've been out of school for a while, it's like, is this the right route for me, or is it not?
Yeah, I would really recommend coming to visit campuses. If you can, join us on campus, attend a class. If you can't make it to visit different campuses, a lot of us have road shows that we're doing where we'll do an information session with local alumni. At the very least, you can join school-specific webinars or Google Hangouts like this. You can continue to learn about kind of the different cultures and personalities of each MBA program and get a sense of what might be a good fit for you. I think all of us have a laundry list of recruiting events happening. We're just kind of launching recruiting for the next cycle. So, definitely continue to engage with us.
Michael, any thoughts there on advice for an engineering candidate, what they should be thinking about right now?
Yeah, I mean, I first off, I agree with the answers thus far. I think those are two great things to do. I mean, pay attention to what's going on at your school now if you're still in school, and then look for the events to connect with us. And then beyond that as well, once you do find a school that you are liking so far, you've gone to an event, you've done your research, you feel like you're ready to do this thing and jump into an MBA program, we're very willing to connect prospective candidates with our current candidates. And sometimes that's nice to do. It's nice to talk to me and I can tell you all the great things about what Lehigh has to offer. But it's nice to talk to somebody who's living it right now. So we have a current student in the room now who's helping us out with that. And it's nice for us to do the same thing. If you're looking at other programs, you're hearing about what Syracuse is offering today, and that's a great resource to have. And a lot of schools will offer you that resource as well. So don't just take our word for it. Let people like Tyler tell you the good, the bad, the ugly of the program. Because it's better to know that and find if you're going to be comfortable there than to figure it out in your second month of class and you realize maybe I made the wrong choice. So speak to people who are doing it now, doing it at the school you might want to go and do the program at. And those connections are very easily made. Sometimes there's a LinkedIn group you can join. Sometimes just by connecting with admissions offices, we can connect you with current students or alumni or faculty or some of our mentors that we may have that you would get in the program. You can get them early. So don't be afraid to ask questions, I guess is my point, is connect with us. Ask us exactly what you want. Tell us what you want help with. Tell us who you want to speak with. We're very happy to make this a comfortable and easy process for you. People can stress out over applying to schools, but don't. Use us as that resource to make it easier for you.
Great. Brian, what are your thoughts from the perspective of a future employer, when they're making this consideration? Yeah. What advice can you offer?
Yeah, I definitely think piggybacking off what they said about reaching out with the Career Center, thinking of alumni who may have went to the same undergrad, but then went to maybe the MBA school that you're interested in, and making that connection. If they've gone through the same curriculum and now they're in the MBA, do they think it's a good fit? Kind of getting feedback from that perspective. So kind of what there was the career, people were saying, but just a little bit more granular looking with someone from within your undergrad. I think also networking is huge. I know a lot of you've touched on it, but you may not be ready for an internship, or you may not be ready for full time, or you may not be sure, but just go to these employer sessions. A lot of times there's free food or, free stuff out there. So make sure and take advantage of that. But, see what positions they offer for MBA. If it's marketing related roles, if it's engineering or business strategy or, HR, just taking the opportunity to stop by, hear more about the company, and then also what opportunities are out there. I think that's really important because, coming from someone who's worked in university recruiting for around 6 years and being on the employer side, we see hundreds of candidates and get, thousands of applications. And if we know your name and we know your face, you go right to the top of the stack whenever it comes to interviews and feedback and things like that. So really taking advantage of that and, having business cards ready to go is very important. Just having that contact information, asking for it, following up, really being present and making sure that the recruiters know who you are, know what you're looking for, and the people from the business do as well. Because a lot of times, whenever you are on campus interviewing or you do interview on campus, the person that you may have talked to at the networking event or the info session will probably be doing your interview or will know the person who you talked to and have already given the feedback. So just being aware of that and understanding that, being out there, being present is the best way to get noticed and to really get, the top company that you want to go to or the top employer that you want to be involved with. And even from an MBA standpoint, talking to these MBA schools at career fairs or reaching out to them and making your name known and networking is really kind of the biggest key when it comes to things like this.
Great. Thank you. Well, we've been talking nearly 40 minutes. Let's see what questions we have. And so I see a few questions here. We have a person saying they have 14 years of experience and they've been wanting to transition into a management role. What are my options? I can only do part-time or weekend. I think that both of you talked about the options that are available at your schools. So I think it would make sense just to reiterate here that there are so many formats and options available for MBA programs. So it's really about that fit, like Michael spoke to, about where you fit and what fits in with who you are and what your needs are. So it's really, I think, about figuring out what might be most important to you. Sometimes the underlying question there, and I don't think it was in this particular one, is there's this, do I go and forsake my career and my pay to go to this 2-year program or 1-year program, or do I do part-time? Do you all ever get that question? And if so, how do you speak to that?
I'm happy to take the first stab at it. So I think it really depends. There's no age limit for us in any of our versions of MBA. Our executive MBA requires some prior work experience. We do offer a full-time executive MBA program. It's called the Sloan Fellows Program. It's 12 months for people with a minimum of about 15 years of experience. So it does give you that full-time immersion experience. But, like we said before, there's a lot of different versions of an MBA out there. The best thing to do is to talk to the different programs, try to connect with alums or career advisors for those programs, and see what they advise you to do in order to meet your career objectives.
Great, thanks. Any thoughts there, Michael?
No, I mean, yeah, we spoke about it a little bit earlier, but yeah, I think the best thing to do is figure out, how we would approach it if you were sitting in our office right now. We would probably ask how comfortable you are with foregoing that salary for a year or 2 years, or depending on the program you're looking at. And then also, how do you want your experience to look? There's obviously, you can do everything you can do in any MBA program if you put the effort in, but it's harder to put that effort in if you're using 40 plus hours a week in an office. So there's a stigma out there that full-time students have a better overall immersive MBA experience, which could be true for a lot of people, but if you put the effort in, you can get a lot of that the same contact time, the same resources out of a part-time or a hybrid or an executive program. You just have to do it right. So it's really your own time management skills, your ability to finance a program if you were to go full-time versus part-time or online or one of those other options. And we just kind of work it through. Some people will hear some of that stuff and it'll click. Some people go home, think about it for a couple of days, and then it clicks. But eventually you'll figure out what works for you. And if you're not ready to decide that just yet, we're not going anywhere. Both our schools, we've been around for 150 plus years each. So we'll be here. When you're ready, we'll be here, and you can pick your program at that point.
And
So we have oh, go ahead.
I was going to piggyback off that. So some of my schools that I work with in my MBA programs, they actually have student organizations specific to people in the program who have been in the workforce for 10 plus years or 11 plus years. So a lot of MBA programs have student groups that focus towards that. So as you're reaching out to your MBA programs, figuring out if this might be a fit for you, see if you can contact them, see if you can reach out and say, hey, I know you might have a student group of more experienced, not so, recent graduate students who have a little bit more experience. Can I get in contact with someone to see if they have and how it's going for them, whether they like the program, wish they would have done it differently. So just having those questions ready and not being afraid to ask questions, which I think, Lehigh and Sloan are both pretty open to.
Right. Thank you. Can you discuss the benefits and potential drawbacks of dual degree programs versus full-time programs? Specifically, do dual degree students get as much MBA education exposure as traditional MBA? So this is kind of piggybacking right off of what you were referring to, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, I can kick that off, I guess. But for this, and not to kind of just belabor the point, but every program is going to be a little different with this. So there may be some dual degrees that offer a full MBA and then a full secondary degree, and that's the dual degree that you're getting. So your experience wouldn't be too different. You might share credits across a couple of classes, but you're almost doing a full MBA along with a full master's, or depending on the type of degree that it is. So in that sense, you are going to get as much MBA education and probably as much exposure. But it might be different at a different school. You might be filling that internship time period with coursework from that other degree, depending on the school that you're at. And now you're not getting some of the extras that you would have gotten in that MBA because you're trying to finish 2 degrees at the same time. So that's something that if you're good at your research and you're good at looking and asking the right questions, figuring out how the schedule will look, it is possible to get the full-on experience of both degrees at that school. And some schools may trim it or cater it a little bit differently. So ask those questions, see what it looks like, and you're going to have to maybe make a sacrifice here and there. Maybe the timeline might not work out. It might be a longer program to fit everything in. So that might work for you, it might not. Or you might be willing to sacrifice some of those MBA type things to fit in the dual degree and get a second master's and get it in a reasonable time period. So sometimes those are some things for people that are looking to do something that's a little more specific to their own background. You may have to make certain sacrifices, or you might not get the full-on experience, but that might be your full experience. It might work for you where it might not work for others.
I mean, I think most of our schools are intending our joint degree options to give you the full experience of both sides. It's up to you as a student to determine where you want to emphasize all of that free time that you have. There's a trade-off to everything that you do. So even full-time MBA students have more things they want to do than there's time for. At the end of the day, you really have to, figure out how you want to spend the time, spend the extracurricular time that you have, who you want to engage with the most. I think we all intend for our joint degree programs to still give you the full experience of both programs.
Yeah, going off of that as well. So my program specifically, I have 2 years of just engineering, and then my final 3 are engineering classes alongside my actual MBA. So the MBA is spread out over an additional year compared to a full-time program that's 2 years. But I'm also taking my courses alongside the actual full-time students. So while I might be in a dual degree, I'm actually getting the same exposure as them. Although I might not have as much time for extracurricular activities, a lot of these programs actually do have programs for like the weekend where you can go out, you can network, you can hang out with the MBA kids. You can do things that they might be doing during the week. So,
Tyler, was there any, maybe your insider perspective could be helpful as to why you chose this program versus a traditional MBA that you may have pursued in another few years or so?
Yeah. So I guess the biggest thing was it was a great opportunity. I spoke to a lot of people following the actual MBA program, and they absolutely loved it. I spoke to a lot of the recruiters, and I actually started early. I started in my freshman year kind of researching MBA programs. A lot of the inspiration came from my father, who's an entrepreneur. So going into the MBA program and getting that experience was something that I wanted to be a part of as well. So as I was researching and I was talking to alumni and reading, forums online about different programs, and I came to realize that there was a 5-year program offered at Syracuse. It was the thing that I wanted to do, I guess to say.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Did we have any more questions come in? There we go. I think so. So I have a few more that just popped up. 1 second. They came all in at once. What does the 2018 class profile look like for Sloan? Are the majority of the students coming from tech and pursuing a tech management career, or are they switching to management or strategy? So are you like all tech?
No.
In your classes? Okay.
No, the class is very diverse. I know that we are the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, but we do attract quite a diverse group of students to the MBA program. Not all the students are in tech. In terms of the profile, I'm not sure if you're asking about where people are going to or where people are coming from, but in terms of where people came from, usually we have between 35 and 40% of the class comes with an engineering background. About 20% of the class is going to come with a business background, and about 20% of the class has a liberal arts background, and the rest is a bit of a mix. So, people are really coming from all different areas in terms of industries and work experience. It's the same story. We do find that 80% of the students in our full-time MBA program are using the MBA to change their career. So what they did before doesn't always translate to what they're doing after. Many engineers are coming into our program here to make a pivot with their career. They're looking to go from a more technical role to more of a leadership or managerial role. That can be in a lot of different ways. It could be working at Apple or Google. It could be working at a place like Cisco. It could be working at Boeing or Amazon. I mean, there are many different places people are going in many different types of roles. So it really depends on sort of what you're passionate about, what you find here that's most interesting to you, and then how you carve out a career path for yourself, how you network, how you're able to kind of connect with people on the back end so that you can find those opportunities.
Thank you. Michael, how many branches are there in the MBA? Meaning like specializations, marketing. Can you give us an overview of,
So, specific to Lehigh, we have 6 different concentration areas for our program. Marketing and finance are 2 of them, supply chain, project management, international business, and entrepreneurship. As far as generally, how many different options could there be? Endless, I would say, if that's a fair word to use. There's more popping up every day. I would say right now a very popular one is in analytics or data analytics or some type of analytics. But there are programs that have concentrations in healthcare management, concentrations in law, concentrations in other specific fields like that. There's a school in New York that just launched a full-on program in fashion. So there's plenty of different areas that you can find depending on what you're looking to do. And that's where, looking up the different programs, if you think there may be a certain subject area that you would want to pursue, type it in, search it, whatever search browser you prefer, and see if it's out there, because it might be. It might only be 1 or 2 programs, but there could be a specialty program out there specific to what you're looking to do, and that might be the program for you. So definitely take a look. What's the best one? For you, it could be whatever you're interested in. There's really no best one generally, because if you're interested in fashion, that MBA in fashion is probably the one to go to instead of the one in marketing, unless you want to do marketing in fashion. So there's a lot of things to really consider with that. Maybe Ryan can speak to this, but one answer I typically give is the concentration area is more for the student than it is for necessarily the company at the end of the day. The MBA is the thing that sets you apart in general, and then the concentration kind of boosts it by a little bit, but it's really to give you that knowledge base and the background in the area that you're interested in, similar to a college major. I have plenty of friends who majored in history and now are working in insurance, and they are not connected at all. So you can kind of find your way into any particular field if you know the right people, if you have the right experience, and you kind of work your way through the system. So figure out what you enjoy, figure out what's out there, and see if there's a good match for you.
Yeah, and I can talk to that. So really, what we recruit for from MBAs is we recruit all different types of positions. So it could be, as I mentioned, product managers, business strategy managers, marketing managers. We have our HR, so our human resources leadership program. We have business analysts. As they've kind of mentioned, it's really what you're passionate about. The MBA is giving you that management experience and giving the opportunity to lead teams and projects that you may not necessarily have been able to in your undergrad. So as I mentioned, if marketing is where you want to go, then you can get your MBA and you have a marketing undergrad and you can be a marketing manager rather than a specialist. Or if you come from you did your business administration undergrad and you are really interested in HR, there's opportunities for that as well. So it really is finding what you're passionate about, and MBA is really honing in on those skills that will make you successful in the interview process and really setting you up for success that complements what you did in your undergrad.
Thank you. So there's a question about funding. What types of scholarship or funding is available? Is it only a certain percentage of classes that get it? And does it matter when you apply as it relates to funding? Does that have an impact on it, the time of year that you actually apply?
You should always apply early. You have the most options if you apply early, the most seats available in the class, the opportunity to sit on a wait list if you're not admitted right away. I always advise people to apply early. In terms of funding, every school is going to manage funding differently. Here at Sloan, we have a number of scholarships and fellowships that we offer to incoming MBA students. We're a merit-based process, so that means we do not take need into account. We're only looking at candidates in terms of giving them fellowships based on the strongest people who apply. Now, those fellowships, some of them are intended for certain populations, meaning whoever the donor was of the fellowship asked that, someone coming into the program who has a degree from Cooper Union is one of them. So the Cooper Union gets a fellowship. But, a lot of schools are going to have very specific sort of restrictions to some of the fellowships they offer, and then they'll have some very general sort of dean's scholarships that they offer. Again, I think it's important to apply early. The earlier you apply, the more funding there might be available. If you apply later in the process, we may have already given out all of our funding because we're not going to say no to great people who apply early in hopes that more attractive people apply later.
Good answer. Any other things to add there?
I would agree with all that, and I think also keep in mind too that when you get some of those specialty scholarships, it's another thing to just continue to look for. And as far as the timing and all of that, you definitely want to go early for sure. But sometimes, program specific, there could be different things that pop up throughout the year. There could be things that even coming off of a wait list, there may be students who had a scholarship that are now selecting a different school that you can reassess. So those are some of the questions when you start to make your short list on program by program. Ask the school that you're looking at, because their process, the way they do it, the types of scholarships that are available could be very, very different school to school. It's tough to give a general answer on that. As far as the percentage of scholarship, we at Lehigh, we have everything from $0 to 100% of the tuition. And anything in between. So, and I'm sure a lot of schools will say the same thing. Background definitely is important because that's what we're looking at. So it's a merit-based process, and your entire application that you submit goes towards deciding who gets the best scholarships and who does not. So you want to put together the best application possible. This might be a good plug for the application. Is take your time on your resume, your CV, your essays, your reference letters, everything that you're submitting, because every piece of that may be contingent on a certain scholarship amount. So, don't think I have a good test score, I have a good GPA, I'm going to get into this school, I don't have to care about the rest, because we might find a candidate who took that time that wants it more, and we might give them a better scholarship. So, take your time on those essays, take your time on the application itself, and definitely send it in as soon as you can.
Great, thanks. How important is it to choose a school based on the companies that heavily recruit from that school, or what geographic location you want to stay in? So should one be basing their school choices on those things?
I think those are two very different questions. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, you go first. I'll piggyback on what you're saying.
I think that if there's a list of companies that are traditionally recruiting from certain schools, I think that's very important information to consider. I think where the school is located is not necessarily as important to think about. You know, people are going everywhere after the MBA experience. It's not that people graduating from Sloan, you know, are all staying in the Boston area. That is far from the truth. So I think looking at, you know, employment report statistics, looking at who the on-campus recruiters are, where students from the past few years have gone is really the most, you know, beneficial or the most informative information out there.
Yeah, I was just piggybacking on what she said. She's completely agree. You know, I sit on the East Coast, for example, and some of my school and a lot of our schools are MBA schools on the East Coast, and they go to San Jose to work, or San Jose to intern, or Midwest schools go to California or state RTP. So where the location is really not as important versus what type of industry you want to go into and what companies recruit there. So look, as you mentioned, you know, past alumni, what positions people have gone into, what locations, where an office is headquartered is also pretty important, because more than likely you're going to end up there versus a virtual or a satellite office. But then also, you know, understanding and, you know, employers are looking for the best MBA programs or full-time MBA programs. So if you're looking at rankings and that's important to you, the higher the ranking, the more opportunities, the more employers are probably going to be going there and things like that. So just it's kind of a, you know, it's not a one size fits all, but taking into account rankings, location, and then also what employers typically go there. And you can usually find that on the website, and, you know, a lot of student groups, but then also employers will list which companies sponsor them or which companies sponsor with this club or certain events. So that's public knowledge. You can go take a look at that based off of the industry and what particular club it might be.
Okay, great. We also have a question here, we get it all the time, about ROI. So we have a person who, you know, he makes 100K, wants to do the full-time program, but is really struggling with the opportunity costs and $200,000 investment. What do you say in this situation to help with that, help the ROI decision?
It's not just about the first job. It's not just about the first year or two after the MBA. It's, you know, completely changing the trajectory of your career post MBA. You have to think about the long term.
The other piece of it too is, you know, assuming the MBA is going to cost $100,000, that's not necessarily the case. I mean, if you have different program tuition costs, or if you earn a scholarship, that could make it a little bit of an easier opportunity cost to take on, or there's other program options. So you don't necessarily have to do a full-time that takes you out of the workforce. Jennifer mentioned earlier, one of her programs you can do almost close to full-time, but you're still be able to work during the day as well. So there's certain programs out there that still give you a full-time type experience because of the amount of face time you have with faculty and with classmates, but still allow you to work. So if opportunity cost is something that is overwhelming to you and you don't want to incur that cost, you know, you could always look for programs that don't have as high of an opportunity cost, still at good schools, that a lot of the recruiters will still be there looking for students from those MBA programs. The recruiters are not necessarily only looking at the full-time MBA graduates. They may be looking at MBA graduates. So even if you're a part-time, an executive student, a hybrid student, you can still have access to those same resources because you're at the same school. So those are all things that when we talked earlier about finding the fit and finding the things that are important to you in a program, there's many, many options that could work for you and still give you that ROI that you're looking for.
Great. All right, we have a few more questions. I'm going to see how many we can get in this 1 minute, maybe one. PhD in engineering, does that increase your chances of getting in school? Like when someone has a PhD, does that elevate their chances, or is it still considered like anyone else?
It certainly doesn't hurt, but
right.
I can't say that it, you know, we're looking at everybody as a holistic, applicant. So I think really a PhD in engineering is amazing. I mean, that is such a huge accomplishment, but we're also looking at evidence of professional success too.
Great, thank you. One last question. How much do the extracurriculars matter? So that's a part of the application process. Does that have a strong bearing on admittance?
I would say for us, generally, it's it's one of those things where if you have them, that's great because it shows us your diversity as a candidate. It shows us what else you're interested in. It shows us how you would be as a candidate at our school. If you don't have a whole bunch of extracurriculars, but you still have a strong career, and that's why you don't have a lot of extracurriculars because you're working 80-hour weeks, then we'd understand that as well. So it's similar to the last question about having the PhD. It's one of those things that it won't hurt you to have them or not have them, but it could help you, depending on how it fits into your overall package as an applicant.
Great. Thank you all so much. I know we went over just a little bit, or no, we're right at 2 o'clock, so we're going to go over, but that's okay. I really appreciate all of your valuable insight, your willingness to share your perspective, and hopefully we gave our viewers some more insight and to help them to be able to make that decision if that's one they're contending with. Thank you all so much. I wish you the best of luck on your journey. Stay tuned to MBA.com for additional events. And then don't forget to go to MBA.com/surveys, fill out our survey for an opportunity to win a $50 exam voucher or $50 Amazon gift card. So thank you so much and take care.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.